Why did the oyster refuse to go to the party? Because it heard there'd be a lot of shellfish behavior. Yes, we're diving into the deep end today, folks, exploring a topic that's often as mysterious as the depths of the ocean. Fellatio and cunnilingus. It's a subject that's sometimes misunderstood. But don't worry, we're here to bring some levity and clarity to the situation. So sit back, relax, and let's embark on this unexpected journey. Remember, no oysters were harmed in the making of this video. We all know about the birds and the bees, but let's talk about the oysters and the clams. Now you might be wondering, what on earth do shellfish have to do with anything? Well, in our world of metaphors, the oysters and clams are about to take center stage. Think about it. An oyster, with its strong, rugged exterior and delicate, delicious interior, might remind you of someone trying to be all tough, but who's really a softie at heart. And the clam, with its two-part shell that opens up to reveal a hidden treasure, might remind you of someone who's a bit reserved, but has a lot to offer once you get to know them. Now, let's imagine a scenario. An oyster meets a clam. They're attracted to each other. They want to show their affection in the most intimate way possible. But how do they do it? Well, that's where our humor and creativity come in. Imagine the oyster, using its strong shell to protect the clam, while also using its soft interior to provide comfort and pleasure. And the clam, opening up its shell to welcome the oyster and offering its treasure in return. It's a dance of give and take, of mutual respect and pleasure. You see, even in the animal kingdom, the key to a good relationship is communication and understanding. The oyster and the clam, despite their differences, find a way to satisfy each other's needs. They don't just take, they also give. They don't just receive, they also provide. It's a delicate balance, a dance of love and affection. And just like the oysters and the clams, we humans also have our own ways of showing affection. Some of us are more like oysters, strong and protective, yet soft and giving. Others are more like clams, reserved and cautious, yet generous and welcoming. It's all about understanding each other's needs and desires and finding a way to satisfy them in the most beautiful way possible. And that, folks, is how the oysters and the clams do it. Have you heard the one about the clam, who thought it was an oyster? Well, it's a bit like some of the myths circulating about fellatio and cunnilingus. Just like our confused clam, some people have their wires crossed. But fear not, we're here to set the record straight with a sprinkle of humour and a dash of light-hearted sea tales. Let's dive right in. First up, the popular sea tale, fellatio and cunnilingus are just side dishes in the grand feast of sexual activities. Oh, how wrong. They're not mere appetizers to be hurriedly consumed before the main course. They're more like the lobster bisque or the clam chowder, savoured for their own unique flavours and textures. They can be the main course, the dessert, or the entire banquet, depending on the tide of the moment. Next, there's the tall tale that only certain species in the sea enjoy these activities. Absolutely false. Just as diverse marine life relishes a variety of food, humans, regardless of gender or orientation, can thoroughly enjoy both fellatio and cunnilingus. It's all about communication, understanding, and consent among the sea creatures involved. Then we have the misconception that these acts are risk-free since there's no chance of pregnancy. Wrong again! While they may not lead to baby seahorses or clownfish, unprotected acts can still transmit infections. So, always remember to sail safe. Lastly, the myth that there's one right way to navigate these waters. Well, the ocean is a vast and diverse place. What works for a starfish might not float a dolphin's boat. It's all about exploring and discovering what makes your particular sea creature swim with delight. So the next time someone tells you a fishy tale, you'll know the real scoop. Now let's dive a bit deeper. Pun intended. Journeying into the depths of the underwater world, where the creatures of the sea frolic and play, we find ourselves in an environment that requires mutual respect and understanding. Just as a diver wouldn't plunge into the ocean without the proper equipment, or without checking in with their diving buddy, the same principles apply in the world of intimate relations. Imagine for a moment you're a scuba diver. You wouldn't just dive into the deep without first ensuring you had your oxygen tank, right? Consent, in our metaphor, is just like that oxygen tank. It's essential, and without it, you're simply not ready to descend. Just as a diver communicates with their buddy through signals, so too must partners communicate their desires and boundaries. Picture trying to navigate through a kelp forest without a compass or a flashlight. It would be pretty difficult, wouldn't it? That's what it's like trying to please a partner without clear communication. And remember, just like in diving, if something feels off, it's okay to signal your buddy and ascend. Now, on to safety. You wouldn't wrestle a shark without some kind of protection, would you? In the same vein, using protection during intimate moments is a must. It's like the cage that shields you from the shark's teeth, providing a barrier that keeps both parties safe and sound. And let's not forget about the importance of knowledge. Divers don't just jump into the ocean blind. They learn about the marine life they might encounter, the potential dangers and the joys they might experience. The same applies to the intimate world. Educate yourself, learn about your partner, and explore together safely and consensually. All in all, diving into the deep sea of intimacy is an adventure filled with excitement and pleasure. But like any great adventure, it requires preparation, communication, and safety measures. After all, the best explorations are those that are enjoyed by everyone involved. Always remember, safety first, even when you're diving deep. We've talked about the oysters and the clams, now let's find the pearl. So, what is this pearl we've been diving for, you ask? Well, it's the culmination of everything we've learned together in this deep sea adventure. Let's start by recalling our journey. We began with the birds and the bees, but soon found ourselves swimming with the shellfish, a playful metaphor that allowed us to explore the intimate practices of fellatio and cunnilingus. We dove deeper to bust myths and misconceptions, dispelling sea tales that have been told for far too long. We then took the plunge into the deep sea, where we examined the importance of communication, consent, and safety in our sexual practices. Now let's turn our attention to the pearl. This pearl isn't a physical entity, but rather it's the wisdom we've gained from our sea exploration. It's the understanding that good sexual practices stem from open dialogue, mutual respect, and a genuine desire to learn about one another's bodies. It's the knowledge that pleasure isn't a one-size-fits-all experience, but something that's unique to each individual. This pearl of wisdom also includes the realization that there's no shame in asking questions, seeking advice, or even turning to a video like this one. It's about knowing that it's okay to not have all the answers, and that the journey to understanding is just as important as the destination. Lastly, our pearl encapsulates the importance of safe sex. It's about recognizing that protecting ourselves and our partners is a crucial part of the sexual equation, not an optional extra. It's the understanding that consent is not a one-time agreement, but an ongoing conversation. So hold on to this pearl. Cherish it. Because it's not just a token from our deep sea dive, it's a treasure trove of wisdom that can enhance your intimate experiences and relationships. And there you have it, the pearl of wisdom from our deep dive into the world of oysters and clams. Before we sign off, let's share one more chuckle. As we've seen, the world of intimate relations can be as deep and mysterious as the ocean itself. But it also has its moments of hilarity and human connection, much like our friendly shellfish friends. So, here's a tale to lighten your day. Once upon a time, there was a young oyster who was a little unsure about his place in the ocean. He was a bit shy and introverted, and he kept his shell tightly closed most of the time. One day, a wise old clam came along and saw the young oyster looking a bit down. The clam floated over and said, "Why so closed off, young one? The ocean is full of wonders if you just open up a little." The oyster replied, "But what if something unwanted gets in?" The clam chuckled and said, "Well, that's how pearls are made, isn't it? Isn't that just like life? Sometimes opening up can be scary, and it can feel safer to keep ourselves closed off. But as the wise clam reminds us, it's often through these experiences that we grow and discover our own pearls of wisdom. Remember, it's not shellfish to want to know more about your body. Until next time, keep laughing and learning."